Well, hello there. I'm Teresa Norton, and this is The View from Abroad, where we look at how the world has changed and how and if we've changed with it. And each week to do that, we unpack a newspaper column that I wrote almost 30 years ago when I was living and working and raising a family in Hong Kong. And you know what? That's a long time ago. And looking back on what felt important or funny or true to me can be a bit like watching old episodes of Friends, kind of funny at the time, maybe still funny, but ouch. And my guest this week is Evgenia Papageorgiou, a long life student of what gets people excited and what helps brands navigate the marketplace and what builds authentic connections with audiences. And Ms. Papageorgiou lived and worked across multiple cultures and continents. So I'm really looking forward to her perspective on relationship dynamics and on this column that she chose, which was written 30 years ago. Domestic blisters. I don't know, maybe I'm nuts, but I have great faith in the institution of marriage. My old man and I have known each other since our wonder years. Really. We watched that show and can remember our own school days at Benjamin Franklin Junior High in 1968. We began dating each other right after we got out of high school, so there's a lot of water under this bridge we've built together, and I think our partnership could withstand just about any catastrophe, with the possible exception of another week without our domestic helper. Now, I'm not saying that the man does nothing to help. He is very good with doing the... Why, just this very minute, he's sitting on his crummy butt playing computer games. Meanwhile, a cup of coffee, which must have made a cameo appearance as an ashtray, sits in the kitchen sink with one of his cigarette butts floating in the coffee dregs. I am not washing that cup. I should interject at this point that he has gotten off of his crummy butt and moved it from the computer terminal to the bedroom. Oh, don't be silly. Of course he's not making the bed. It's conga time, and Ricky Ricardo is warming up for a night at the Tropicana. Babaloo. I am not washing that cup. Now, it's not like I'm keeping score or anything, but this morning I made the coffee and the breakfast, got the kids dressed, packed the lunches, and made the beds. He drank the coffee, read the paper, smoked the cigarette, and watched our son cross the street. What amazes me isn't that my husband has to be asked to help. He very simply cannot see what needs to be done. He is domestically impaired. And according to testimony from at least 3 other women in my daughter's playgroup, their mates are similarly chore challenged. My husband has actually said, I have a wife and a maid and I still don't have any clean socks. My husband thinks that helping out is watching the kids. Watching the kids destroy the house. When our helper went on holiday, I got so fed up of doing everything when I got home from work that I told him nothing's going to be ironed for 2 weeks and I'm ordering a pizza tonight. Every night. We all looked like we'd slept in our clothes and we haven't touched a pepperoni since then, but I survived. Oh, and if you ask him to do something, it's no problem, which, as we all know, means not in this lifetime. And if you ask again, say 6 hours later, you're nagging. Nagging, I hate that. I hate it when they say that. I guess we can all picture the man who first coined that word. He was sitting on a rock staring at pictures on the cave wall while his wife was stitching a mastodon skin with one hand and barbecuing Bronto burgers with the other. Rock, there's a saber-toothed tiger heading our way. Might now be a good time to move the boulder in front of the cave door? No problem. Honey, he's licking his chops and eyeing Rock Jr., Rock struggles off his crummy butt and, lumbering towards the cave's opening, stubs his bare toe on one of the many bongo drums. He bellows, frightening off the tiger while clutching his throbbing toe. I have a mate and a maid, and I still don't have any clean foot coverings. He sits back down on his rock while she, unmoved by her man's outburst, stares out the open cave at the boulder, unmoved by her man. Seething, she crosses the cave towards her mate and watches him snub out a cheroot in his drinking shell. She is not washing that shell. Evgenia, we're back and welcome. Have I said your name right? I've been practicing and practicing. If I said it in English, it would be Eugenia, but say it for us in Greek, please.
Hello, Teresa. My name is Evgenia, but I respond to Eugenia as well.
Well, we'll see how I go with this, okay? So listen, before we unpack that column, I note that you shared with me ahead of time that you also are divorced. And I'm going to quote your email to me. You are passionate about exploring alternative models of love and partnership that prioritize both intimacy and individual autonomy. Now, with that in mind, yes. I am really interested in unpacking this particular column with you. It was a slightly exaggerated version of my lived experience, but I do have to tell you that my then husband said early on, I don't do wet jobs. And I'm telling you, around the house, and particularly if you have small children, it's kind of nothing but wet jobs. So, I had some male friends his age who had a completely different marital dynamic going on. They shared the things. So what do you think? I mean, is this specific to gender? Is it specific to age? Is it culture? Talk to me about this.
Wow. A lot to unpack. And my mind goes elsewhere when your husband says, I don't do wet jobs. So I'm like, okay, let me bring it back. Oh. Okay. Sorry. So back to your column. There was one line in your column that your husband said, I have a wife and a maid, and I still don't have any clean socks.
That was somebody else's partner, but because I got to be fair, he didn't say that, but go ahead.
But to me, that is the perfect example of the impossible expectations we place on our partners. Like, we want them to be everything. Best friend, passionate lover, great parent, financial partner, and of course, find where our socks or our passport is every time we need them. So for someone that is in love with love, and I'm speaking about myself, I kind of come to realize that the institution of marriage and love are two separate things, in my opinion. See, I don't have any issue with partnerships. I love partnerships. But I think it's about the assumptions that make partnerships work that I'm struggling with.
Does that extend beyond marital or, love relationship partnerships and also to business partnerships? I mean, these expectations?
I believe so. Because it cannot be one partnership that can address all our needs, right? That's a lot of pressure on one person. I think we need many different partnerships and relationships to satisfy all our needs. And I know that might sound a bit complicated or a bit like a funny kind of orgy, but it's not. I think there's merit and basis to it.
Yes. Okay. So go on. So what might that look like?
Well, I think if you go to a romantic partnership, you kind of need to strike a balance between our domestic intelligence and our romantic intelligence. And I think often where relationships break down is because we focus too much on the domestic intelligence. Things need to function. Everything needs to be on time. We got to get to work. We got to take care of the kids. Someone needs to do the dishes. Someone needs to plan the trips. And we focus so much time on that we forgot that the reason we actually got together was all about being great lovers and actually wanted someone to witness our lives. And all of a sudden that Erotic, romantic intelligence disappears and we focus so much on the domestic.
But somebody does have to do those wet
Yeah.
jobs, baby. I mean, there's resentment that comes from being the person that's doing it all. So if the focus goes back to the romantic, who ticks the boxes for all the stuff that needs to get done?
Aren't we both ticking boxes? And why do we need to tick boxes? Why do we even need to live together? Like,
Ah.
you know why I chose that article of yours? Because it reminded me that every time before the cleaner came, I would clean up.
Oh, I do the same thing.
Yes.
I mean, just tidy a bit. Yeah. Okay, carry on.
Correct. And then I tried to analyze that because many people pointed out whether they were committed partners or non-commitment partners. Like, why are you tidying up before the cleaner? Because there's a certain way I choose to present myself to each and every one. Not everyone needs to see my mess. And my mess is mine to make and mine to take care of. See? So think about it in a romantic context when you're sharing your time and your space with someone. If you see them on a regular basis, doing all the chores or seeing them outside of their workspace where you might have met them and admire them, how can you keep the desire burning? It's like when you have removed all the facade and what is remaining is just, someone lying snoring next to you and leaving the dishes in the sink unwashed. How can you desire that? And do I need to see that? Does he need to see that in me? See, that's what I struggle with.
So is your position that you think the solution to an imbalance in, let's say, domestic participation around the house, the answer to that is don't share the same house?
I think it's about the conversation we need to have about the expectations. What are our expectations from that relationship?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, because I have to say, I mean, in all fairness, all of the road signs were there from the beginning. It's not like I was deceived into thinking that he was going to be a domestic god that I had married. Now, this is where I want to ask you a little bit about, the mothering part of this, because I make some very strong statements about the fact that if he's good at doing all this stuff, the person that gets the credit is his mother. And that's where the cultural question comes up for me. I mean, do a man's comfort and sense of responsibility for domestic participation, does that get formed by his cultural environment? You've lived in a lot of different places, and I'm assuming dated a few different guys. Does it change because of their cultural background?
It depends how close their mother is living. It can influence that. But that's, more for the South Europeans. I didn't have that in Asia. I don't think it's cultural. I think it's gender and how we have been raised. And I believe it does change through age groups.
For example, my son, who is like my wingman when it comes to any kind of domestic stuff. And it's not just the heavy lifting. It's not, oh, I can't get this up here, it's too heavy. No, he helps with everything. But we had a helper in the house. It's not like he saw me doing all the domestic chores, and he certainly didn't see his father doing it. I think you're right. I think it's a generational thing that there's just more equity between men and women. I mean, do we even need that term anymore? I don't know. Everything's become, just kind of humans, right?
I still think it's two things. I believe we all, respectively of gender and age, we need a space where we can be completely ourselves, mess and all, right? And I don't want to apologize about that to anyone. I don't need to explain that to anyone. So that is needed by everybody. Then it's when you are living with someone, I mean, let's be honest, cohabitation, whether it's a colleague, a friend, or a romantic partner, is difficult. It requires compromise. It requires to give space and time to actually figure each other out. But it also requires to have those difficult upfront conversations about what are our expectations. Because at the end, the fight is not about who did the dishes, is about control and power, is about being heard, is about being seen, is about showing that you care. Those are the things we're fighting for, not about.
Beautifully said. And I think that, you know, I didn't have those kinds of conversations. You know, I kind of went into it thinking, well, the stuff that I don't really like so much, I'll fix that later. What? Who am I to be fixing anybody? You know, he was fine the way he was. But you're right. We didn't have that conversation in the beginning. We just had arguments about it.
Yeah. And we can get used to the arguments, and arguments are good. I like conflict. The challenge is, how do you move past the conflict? You know, how do you make sure you go to bed and you have already reconciled? That's the tough bit.
And you know, sometimes you can go to bed saying, okay, well, we won't go to bed mad, but not fighting about it anymore doesn't necessarily mean it's been reconciled. I think those are two different things. You know, stopping the fight and having that kind of ending conversation that gives you reconciliation and closure.
I don't think closure is necessary. Like, sometimes we think of closure as, let's clarify what happened and make sure we're both happy about it. We don't need to do that. Or closure is about getting or giving an apology. No, nobody owes you that either. And no answer can also be a closure. And that's the best thing you get.
I think it's interesting, going back to this point that you make about having those conversations ahead of time. At what point in the relationship does that serious expectations conversation happen for you?
I believe as early as possible. Once you start seeing that there is interest in a committed relationship, I believe instead of putting our best selves forward, which we should, but everyone does it early on, just show the real you, right? What gets you, what upsets you, what actually gives you pleasure, how you like to live. Introduce people to your, domestic life. Let them understand and see who you are, so people can gradually get accustomed with what you are and what to expect. Be yourself, and also do things that allow you to see yourself and the other person in real circumstances, as opposed to going out for dinner and drinks all the time, right? See them within their friends, or see them with your friends, see how they react. See how they react under crisis. We all have something going on, right? Nobody's life is perfect. I just think some of us are really good at hiding it. Not overshare, but share. See how the other person reacts. Are they pulling back, or are they actually leaning in?
I'm glad that we've been able to sort of unpack this column in such an interesting way. I think what we should do now is let's take a little break. And then when we come back from the break, I want to hear the true story that came to mind for you as a result of listening to that column. You are moving to a completely different part of the world, correct? You're dialing in here from Vietnam. You've lived in Singapore for a while. I know you've lived in a lot of different places. Is Is it the Gulf that is next?
I certainly hope so. I was born and raised in Europe. I stayed in Europe until I was 33, going through different countries, Greece, Italy, Switzerland, but working across Western Europe, Central Europe, even Turkey, Israel, and Cyprus. I've been now in Asia Pacific for, I think it's coming to 12 years. And therefore, it's time for a change. I feel like I've overstayed my welcome because I'm losing the sense of novelty. And recently, I decided, because I'm a marketer and to me the feeling of novelty is important, I decided to give notice. So I will leave my current company in August. And at the same time, I want to leave Singapore and move to the Middle East, whether it's UAE or Saudi.
How exciting. Do you know anyone there?
I don't know anybody in Saudi. I know a couple of people that have moved to Dubai, but I'm actually getting to know people. I reach out to people that are of similar profession or of companies I admire and I ask them to connect and give me their perspective. I talk to recruiters and ask them to, give me some insights, what I should watch out.
Now, let's talk a little bit about what you do and what would people come to you for?
I've worked in marketing for the last 20 plus years. I like to say that I know how to figure out what gets people excited and how brands can actually recruit them. So what I've been doing for the last 20 years is telling stories so that I can get consumers to buy the brands that I'm selling. I am a storyteller. I love stories. And I like stories that evolve around food. See, food has shaped my life, personal and professional, because I grew up in a home that was always full of food. I would wake up, there was food. I would come back from school, there was food. Before I go to bed, there was food. Even if I woke up in the middle of the night, there was still food. And the one thing I remember, even though I've left home almost 18 years ago, is that those Sunday family lunches and the stories we would tell, those live very vividly in me. And that's how my life and career were shaped. I've always worked in food and with food, for food. I travel for food. I go looking for the latest and greatest or for the next best restaurant or for the little hidden gem. I like posting and writing about food. And I think the best connections happen with food around the table. That's where people actually open up. See, food is not just health or sustenance, it's culture, it's connection, it evokes emotions. It's like a connection between the past, the present, and an anticipation of the future. So I tell stories around food, and I just happen to work in marketing. But I have many more interests. Can I turn my interest and passions into work? Potentially. People, when they meet me, they think I work in fashion. I don't know why. I think their illusions are kind of shattered when I tell them, no, I just sell drinks and food. That's all I do. Necessarily, yes.
Okay, well, listen, if people want to get a hold of you and either book you as a speaker or for a panel discussion, and they are in that part of the world, how would they connect with you? Would it be via LinkedIn?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. So, yeah, I'm happy to meet new people. I'm happy to talk to anyone who thinks that I have something interesting to say. And I'm also happy to offer a shoulder for whoever needs or facing a challenge, whether it's work related, moving geographies, or being in transition.
Evgenia Papageorgiou on LinkedIn. You can get a hold of her. Now, let's get back to her story. Okay, here we are, and that column was very specifically a big whine and gripe about a man who would not clean that coffee cup. So out of that crazy column, what came up for you as a memory or a true story from your own?
I thought of two relationships, to be honest. And they were both willing to do the domestic chores, especially the dishes. Everybody likes doing the dishes. It's actually therapeutic. Nobody likes cleaning the house per se. So for that, the agreement with both was, you know what? We don't need to fight about it. We are both working. We get a cleaner. I mean, we're not at home that often anyway. So that's an investment well worth it, the spend. So domestic chores, shorted. The cleaner would iron, the cleaner would rub the toilet, do the windows, do the mopping. Nobody had to stress about it or lose our weekends over it.
Wet jobs nailed.
Exactly. So domestic chores was never the challenge, in my opinion. But what your story reminded me was that in both cases, what I struggled with was that we let that take time, or the discussions about those take time for what really matter. And that was actually putting everything aside and just spending half an hour of quality time just listening to each other, uninterrupted. Forget the dishes, forget the work, put down your phone and all your texts you receive from work and just spend half an hour just listening to how each other's day was. Because to me, that's domestic bliss. When that is missing, it turns into a blister. And that's what I still, fight for. I just want that empathetic listener that I know it's there for me 100%, uninterrupted. You're listening, I'm being heard, and that's it. And to me, that's where the whole emotional intelligence comes in, which is overshadowed by the domestic intelligence. Fuck that. I can manage my own work. I can manage my bills. The house can be managed by either of us or someone else. But what about us? What about the thing that actually brought us together, which was I want a witness to my life and you want a witness to your life? That's where the struggle starts, when that thing is missing. Because what's the point of being in this, sharing a home or even a bed with someone and not actually being witnessed on a daily basis? And those are the memories or the traumas or the wounds that your article brought.
How did your relationship with your ex-husband wrap up? Are you now in touch with each other at all, or no?
No, I've never been in touch with any of my former romantic partners.
Really?
Relationships don't end because feelings end. I think feelings are the last thing to die, if they ever do. They end because there have been unresolved issues or conflicts. And you can love someone and wish them well and still not wish to be with them. It can also be because you evolve differently and your values change, or what you want out of your life change. And that happens too. I'm not saying that you cannot make it work, but you also have to consider the cost opportunity analysis. Where do you really want to invest more? Up to you.
So a friendship post marriage would not be a possibility for you?
Neither of us
No.
seek that. So,
Okay. Yeah.
and that's okay.
What I like about this is that, it's not a one size fits all for everybody. Um, my former husband and I are both parents to our kids. So we have that shared role, even though our relationship with one another as partners has ended. But we do have a thing that keeps us in each other's sphere. And also, I think it's about, for me anyway, getting to a point in a relationship where you're not just thinking about the things that were negative that brought it to an end, but you're able to appreciate some of the things, as you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, that bring you together, the things that interested you about one another, the things that you did together that were shared joys. So, it's nice if you can get to that stage. Thank you so much. I think we have to wrap this up, but I want to thank you so much for being a guest on The View from Abroad. And if people want to get a hold of you and they are in the Middle East, because you're not exactly sure where you're going to land there yet, they can certainly find you through your LinkedIn.
Evgenia. And then the last name is, oh my God, that's long. Papageorgiou. Wow, that is long.
Well, listen, you're very active on LinkedIn, and I'm sure if they put the first name in there, they'll find you very quickly. Thank you so much for being on the show. Hey, listen, whatever you're going through in your relationships, whether it's driving you crazy or whether you've come to some sort of resolution, even if the resolution is just with yourself, and you're thinking about what's going to happen next. Am I going to meet somebody? Or am I never going to meet anybody? Or I don't want to meet anybody. As my friend Geraldine used to say to me, those concerns that we have about the future, hey, what if it's good? Breathe all the time, come up slowly. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please share with your friends and comment, and we'll see you next time.